How's it going, Ghostlings? My name is Ghost Aniki, and welcome back to D&D class, where we're going to be talking everything D&D. Today we're going to continue on in our character creation series with the next step, equipment. Every character you make will have a starting set of equipment. This is your items, your armor, your weapons, your gold, anything like that you get at the start of the story based on the character you create. So we're going to be discussing your options of what you might get. We're going to be discussing what some of the things mean with what kinds of weapons and armor there are and the different items that you get. And we're going to be discussing what it means for your character. Now, as with many steps in D&D character creation, we have a choice to make it first. We can either choose to use the pre-built equipment list or a bought equipment list. The pre-built is what's set with the character's class and background. So, for my background, which is the entertainer background, I have this list of equipment here. My background gives me a musical instrument of my choice, a favor of an admirer, which is just a flavor text item, a costume, and a pouch with 15 gold. Every background is going to give you a certain amount of gold to start out. And then my class, which is Bard, gives me a list of options in the Bard chart. So I get to choose either a rapier, a longsword, or any simple weapon, a diplomat's pack or an entertainer's pack, a lute or any other musical instrument of my choice, and leather armor and a dagger. The real draw to the pre-built equipment list is that it's quick. You've got your list of items that you can choose. For the most part, you're proficient with any items that you could choose from those lists. You pick them, your character is made, you're good to start the game. In and out, just real quick. The downside is that you do potentially start with less gold than you do with the bought equipment lists, and you have less character customization options than you do with the bought equipment lists, as we'll see here in a moment. But, like I said, you can pretty well guarantee that you're proficient with whatever items you choose in this case, so there's not a lot of having to go back and forth in your abilities and what you can do, and it is fast. You just circle whatever option you want, and you're good to play the game. In Chapter 5 of the Player's Handbook, which is the Equipment chapter, pages 143 through 161, it lays out a secondary option for your starting equipment. Rather than taking a pre-built loadout, the player can choose to forego that and take a certain amount of gold dependent on their class and buy all their equipment. So as a bard, I would get 5d4 times 10 gold pieces, and I would then get to go through each of the charts in the chapter and choose my items. I would get to choose and buy my armor, weapons, gear, tools, adventuring packs, all that kind of stuff. And whatever gold I have left is the gold I start with at the beginning of the story. The draw here is that you get a bit more character customization at the start. You may start out with more gold, you may get rid of some of the dead weight items that you wouldn't actually use with the pre-built options, and you get to kind of make your character's items fit them a bit more. The downside is that it's not quite as quick. With the pre-built loadouts, you get to just circle whatever you want, get in, get out, you're good to go, you're good to start the game. With the bought option, there's a little bit more going back and forth of, okay, am I actually proficient with that item? Am I not? Why would my character not be proficient with that item? Why would they have that? There's more going back and forth based on your character. Now, you'd want to discuss with your DM if either or both are an option. Some DMs only use the pre-built options, some may only use the bought option. You want to discuss with your DM at the start in your character creation phase and see what they want, what they allow, what they're comfortable with, and see what works best for your character. As a sort of reminder, the pre-built loadout options are with your character's background and class. It'll be listed in the charts of your proficiencies, your abilities, your items that you start. It's all listed there. The bought options and the charts of items are all going to be in the Chapter 5 Equipments chapter of the Player's Handbook. You can find all this information online as well if you just look it up. Roll20, D&D Beyond, they all have lists of your different options for either one, so it's going to be easy to find even if you don't have the Player's Handbook. But for our character, for the character we're making, I'm just going to go with the pre-built loadout, make it a bit easier, make it a bit quicker, and get into explaining what each of the armors and weapons and tools means for my character. Before I actually build my character's equipment loadout, I want to be sure to put in what proficiencies I have and with what tools and equipment, just so I don't accidentally take an item that I can't really use to its max effect. So I have listed here what weapons and tools and armor I'm proficient with. Your class and your background both list what you are or are not proficient with. Some races also have tool proficiencies that you'll want to keep aware of. So I'm going to go ahead and record these in the proficiency and languages box down here. So now I've got everything recorded here in my other proficiencies and languages box. I have proficiency with light armor. I have proficiency with simple weapons, hand crossbows, long swords, rapiers, and short swords. I have proficiency with 3 musical instruments of my choice, which I went ahead and just chose drums, flutes, and lyres. I have further tool proficiencies from my background with disguise kits and 1 other musical instrument, which I went ahead and just chose pan flute. And from my character race, I have 2 languages, Common and Draconic. Those are the languages I can read, write, speak, understand, all that kind of stuff. So these are the items that I am proficient in and that we're going to use to base our decisions on what items I will take for my character's equipment loadout. Now, it's important to note that you can use any item or weapon or armor that you want, whether you have proficiency with it or not. But using an item without having proficiency with it will cause drawbacks. If you use armor without having proficiency with it, you have disadvantage on any ability checks, saving throws, or attack rolls that involve strength or dexterity, and you can't cast spells while wearing that armor. If you use a weapon that you don't have proficiency with, you will not add your proficiency bonus to your attack rolls. Any other items that you get later on that you don't have proficiency with, like your tools and your gear, if you don't have proficiency with it, you just don't add your proficiency bonus to rolls involving those gear or item checks. Now here I've got pulled up the armor charts. I'm on roll 20, which takes its information directly from the books, and so it has it divided up between light armor, medium armor, heavy armor, and shields. And then in each column you have the armor name, the cost, its armor class that it gives, its strength requirements, any disadvantage it has on stealth, and its weight. We are focused on light armor as that's what we're proficient with. So as a quick explanation here, padded armor as an example. It costs 5 gold, so if we were to sell it later on, we could sell it for most likely up to 5 gold, probably wouldn't be quite that much. If we wanted to buy it, that would be the average gold cost that it would take. It gives an 11 plus the dex modifier as the character's armor class while wearing it. It does not have any strength stat requirements, unlike some of the heavy armor, which you have to have a certain strength score to have. It does impose disadvantage on stealth checks when wearing it, and it weighs 8 pounds, which is what affects our carry capacity. Now, our character, when you look at the class equipment, does not have an option of what armor we use. We have leather armor and a dagger. So we're going to go ahead and input that into our character's list and change the armor class to show that. So as you can see, I've got my leather armor put in down here with its basic information. I've got my dagger put in, which we'll go over some of the details of this here in a moment. And then I changed my armor class. Originally my armor class was a 12, but with the leather armor, which is 11 plus your dex modifier, it actually went up to 13. So 11 plus my plus 2 dex modifier for a total armor class of 13 with leather armor. So now we're going to go over weapons, which have a little bit more detail with them. As you can see here, once again, we're on roll 20, and we've got our weapons charts. We've got it simple melee weapons, simple ranged weapons, martial melee weapons, and martial ranged weapons. Within each chart, you have a list of the weapon name, its monetary value, its damage and damage type, its weight for carry weight, and its additional properties. Most weapons have additional properties that change how you fight with them. And each of those properties are also listed in the book. So as an example, we have a dagger, as I explained. Daggers are worth 2 gold pieces, so when you buy them, it's going to average about 2 gold for a standard dagger. It does 1d4 pierce damage, which will affect different enemies in different ways. It's 1 pound, so it's super light. It's a finesse weapon, which means that you can use your strength or your dexterity modifiers for the attack roll. You get to choose which one dependent on which one is highest. It's a light weapon, which means you can dual wield it. There are slightly different rules for dual wielding weapons that you can find in the book, and there are some different feats that you can take that will aid in dual wielding, but light means that you can dual wield those weapons. And they are a thrown weapon, which means you can use them for ranged attacks. This range here, 20-60, means that anything between 20 feet to 60 feet away, you attack as normal with the thrown weapon. Anything closer than 20 or further than 60, you have disadvantage on that attack roll to hit with range. Some of the other ones here, you have two-handed weapons, which means that you have disadvantage if you don't use it two-handed. Versatile means that you can use one hand or two hands to fight with it, and it changes the damage output. Let's see. Ammunition just means that it's a weapon that requires ammunition and loading. Heavy means that only certain creature sizes can use those weapons. Anything smaller takes disadvantage. But this one does have reach, which means that it has a longer attack range than a standard weapon. And let's see. And then you've got some that have like special rules, which are going to vary weapon to weapon. So nets and let's see, what was it? Lances have slightly different rules to follow that you can find in the special rules column. Our character has proficiency with simple weapons, hand crossbows, long swords, rapiers, and short swords. And as you can see from our class equipment options, we have a choice between a rapier, a longsword, or any simple weapon. I've gone ahead and chosen the rapier, since it has finesse, which means we can use dexterity or strength modifiers for our attack bonus, and since our dexterity is obviously higher than our strength, I went with that. It is a 1d8 pierce weapon, and it has finesse. So what we have here is we have two weapon options we can use, the weapons that we have to start out. We have our dagger, which does 1d4 pierce. It's finesse, which means we can use dexterity or strength for the attack modifiers. It's a light weapon, which means if we have two daggers, or a dagger and another light weapon, we can use both to attack as a dual wielding kind of thing. And we have the thrown option. And then our rapier is 1d8 pierce and finesse. Now, we do have two weapons that are just piercing damage. So if we come up to an enemy that is resistant to piercing damage, we're kind of, out of luck with our weapons in that way. But that's kind of just the risk you roll with any weapon choices. Now, before we finish up our equipment loadout, I wanted to explain a couple things about armor and weapons that I didn't prior. First things first with armor. There are some races that have almost flavor text restrictions with armors. For example, druids can't use metal armor. Fey creatures have an aversion to iron. Now, does that mean you can't use the armor you want to use? Not necessarily. What it does mean is you'll want to discuss with your DM ways that you can make it work for your character's story. For example, I do have a druid in my current party. As a druid, he can't use metal armor. And so he discussed it with me, and we decided that he could use a stat block for one of the pre-existing armors, but just call it chitin armor or bone armor. So you'll just want to work with your DM on ways to make the armor that you want to use fit with your character, or find a workaround for those restrictions. It's nothing major, but it helps your story for your character be more coherent, and make sense, and work within the realm of the character that you're making. Now, with weapons, I wanted to explain the difference between your attack roll and your damage roll. And I'm going to use my dagger as my example here. Your attack roll is to see if you hit the enemy. It's your attack roll versus their armor class. And what the attack roll is it's a d20 plus your modifier plus any proficiency bonus you have. So say the enemy has an armor class of 14, and I roll a 10 on my d20. I would then look at my dagger and see that I have finesse, which means I can either use my strength modifier or my dexterity modifier with that attack roll. So I'm going to go ahead and use my dexterity modifier since it's obviously higher. That brings my roll of 10 to a 12. I also have proficiency with simple weapons, so I'd add my proficiency bonus of +2. which would bring that 12 to a 14, which means I rolled an attack roll of 14 against the enemy's armor class of 14. Now, your DM may play it differently, but typically the player wins ties, so I would be able to hit that enemy. Again, there may be some different rules that your DM has, or the situation may be different, but that's the standard, is that players win ties. So I hit that enemy. Now I look at my damage roll. I see that my dagger has 1d4 piercing damage. So I would roll a d4. And I would add my dexterity modifier to it. So it's 1d4 plus 2 in this case. So say I roll a 3, that means I do a total damage of 5 with my dagger. Now that could also change depending on if you get a critical hit, a critical fail, if the enemy has damage, resistance, immunity, or an especial weakness to piercing damage. But as a standard thing, that means I would do 1d4 plus my dex modifier to that enemy. The only reason I add my dex modifier instead of strength is because this weapon has finesse. Typically, weapons are either strength or dexterity, they're not either or. You don't get to choose with most weapons. Finesse weapons are just a special exception. But that's the primary difference, is your attack roll is to see if you hit. It's your d20 plus your modifier plus your proficiency bonus if you're proficient. And then your damage is how much damage you do based on what the weapon's stats are. So it is, in the case of the dagger, a d4 plus my dexterity modifier. For any other weapon, it would be strength or dexterity depending. So now we get to finish up our character's equipment loadout. We see here in class equipment, we get to choose a diplomat pack or entertainer's pack. We get to choose a lute or any other musical instrument. And then from our background, we get one other musical instrument of our choice, the favor of an admirer, which is just a flavor text item, a costume, and a pouch with 15 gold. Now, your packs are going to have different things. So our options are either the entertainer's pack, which has a backpack, bedroll, 2 costumes, 5 candles, 5 days ration, a water skin, and a disguise kit, or a diplomat's pack, which has a chest, 2 cases for maps and scrolls, a set of fine clothes, a bottle of ink, an ink pen, a lamp, 2 flasks of oil, 5 sheets of paper, a vial of perfume, sealing wax, and soap. Since we have proficiency with disguise kits, we're going to go ahead and choose the entertainer's pack. So we're going to go with the entertainer's pack. We're going to choose a different weapon, or a different musical instrument, since we have already chosen what we're proficient with. I'm just going to say that we take a lyre. And then from our background, we get one more musical instrument. I'm going to say pan flute. The favorite of an admirer. We'll go ahead and just say, yeah, a love letter. We get a love letter from someone who has been following our performances. We get an additional costume, and we get a pouch with 15 gold pieces. So we're going to go ahead and input all that into our character sheet. Now, we've got all our equipment put in. We've got our weapons, which are a dagger and a rapier. We've got our leather armor, which has given us a 13 armor class. We've got our entertainer's pack, our lyre, pan flute, favor of an admirer, and our costume. We've got our 15 gold, and we've got all of our proficiencies and languages written down over here. As you can see, I do have weights and values of most of the items here. I copied down any that did already have a set weight and value to them. The only 2 that didn't were the favor of an admirer and the single costume. The reason I have that is because there is a rule for carry weight in D&D. Your character can carry their strength score times 15. So for my character here, that means 6 times 15 to a total of 90 pounds I can carry. I currently have roughly about 56 pounds of equipment here. I did about 1 pound between the costume and the favor of the admirer just to be, on the safe side. So I'm not over encumbered. The typical rule for over encumbrance is at a certain point past your carry weight, it will lower your speed. Different tables will play it differently. Some don't even pay attention to carry weight, especially with new tables, tables with a lot of new characters, new players. They don't pay attention to carry weight very much, but I have them in just to be safe. Like I said, assuming that your table is doing carry weight, it's 15 times your strength score, and then at a certain point past that, it'll lower down your speed. Your carry capacity will also determine, to a degree, what you can push, drag, or pull, and some other different factors here and there as determined by the DM. But that is how you find your equipment for your character. Like I said, check with your DM, talk with your DM. They may have some different things they want for the campaign, and they want the characters within the story to fit into things. You may be able to work around some different things, find different things that fit your character and your vision for your character better. So just communicate with your DM, make decisions with them, try to figure out, okay, will this work, what won't work, things like that. But for the most part, it's pretty straightforward in choosing your items. You just kind of follow the lists or make determinations based on the charts, and you're good. There's just some things that you might want to check with your DM. Okay, what does this stat mean? What does this wording mean for this item? Different things like that, just to keep up with it. But that is how you get your tool, weapon, armor proficiencies, and what weapons, armors, tools, gold, all that kind of stuff that you start with. Next time we'll be discussing magic casting, which is where things get really, really complicated. But that is for the next video. I hope you all had a good time. If you did, be sure to check out the YouTube, Twitch, Discord, TikTok. Check out all the places so you don't miss any content, any changes, news, updates, anything like that. Be sure to hit subscribe and the notification icon so you don't miss any more of these discussions or any other content. If you like what you saw, be sure to share with your friends, share with your family, share with your neighbors, and share with your D&D table. They may be looking for how to create a character too, so share with them. Share the love. As always, I appreciate y'all being here. Greatly appreciate it. It means a lot to me. Have a great night, great week, great day, great everything, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, Ghostlings.